Hello Internet, Seth Skordkowski, and today we're going to take a look at the Cyberpunk 2020 mini-adventure Open Highway. The scenario appears in the CP 2020 rulebook as the first of 10 mini-adventures, so there's no need for additional purchases outside of the core rulebook, which I've always appreciated about R. Talsorian for doing by providing a bunch of mini-adventures in the main book. Though calling an adventure might be a bit much. It's only 2 pages, one of which being a handout. It's more of a framework for an adventure, and game masters are going to need to fill in a lot of the detail before they can play it. Unlike many of the other scenarios that are available for Cyberpunk 2020, this one does not take place in the urban combat zones or high up in glass and steel corporate towers. The Open Highway takes place on the, Open Highway. It's a cross-country adventure where the player characters find themselves in the middle of a conflict between 2 megacorps. Because this is a framework, game masters are going to need to do a lot of stuff to change up the details, but it makes it perfect for any group because it's extremely easy for them to customize. So while it doesn't actually specify how many players are needed, and that actually really depends on how the game master sets it up, how it is printed, I would recommend that you have at least 3 players for this adventure, and I think 5 to 6 players would be most ideal for it. I've run the adventure twice over the years, both times being vastly different than each other. It is one of my very favorite Cyberpunk scenarios, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give my suggestions and my criticisms as a game master who has run this adventure.
And I'm Jack the NPC. I'm going to give this one to you from a player's side of things. So buckle up, boys and girls, because this is about to be a wild ride.
But before we go any further, I must warn you that there will be spoilers. So any players in the audience, please stop now, but send your game masters this way to see if this is an adventure that they could run for you. Okay, game masters, let's get to work. As I said, the adventure is short. It's just 2 pages long. In fact, here it is. The first page is a screen sheet that you're going to give your players. It gives some good background and some good world building for what's going on. The adventure is that the player characters are hired by Biotechnia to transport a tractor trailer full of a new growth enzyme that they've developed. However, Petrochem, the leading producer in Chew-2 fuel, at least I think that's how they pronounce it, which is a grain-grown alcohol fuel, they want this enzyme for themselves, and they are going to try to hijack this truck. Now, if you want more information on Petrochem, you can find a ton of great information about them in Court Book 3, but it is not necessary to run this adventure. The player characters are to drive a tractor trailer loaded with barrels of this enzyme from La Jolla, California, all the way to a USDA facility outside of Nashville, Tennessee. It's 1,900 miles, and they have 36 hours in order to do it. Biotechnia is going to provide them with a top-of-the-line tractor truck, along with 2 nondescript Toyo Chevrolet sedans, which have been modified to act like sports cars, and they're to serve as escort as well as scouting vehicles for this giant road trip. Once the player characters deliver the goods, Biotechnia is going to pay them each 1,000 EB for their time.
Whoa, you stop right there, buddy. If this job is so important to you that you're going to let us use some big fancy big rig and a pair of sweet sports cars, then you are going to pay us for our time as well. Which means we ain't going to do this job for you for less than 5,000 euro bucks a piece, huh? What you think about that?
The players are likely going to want to negotiate the price, and I say let them. In fact, feel free to raise that price up as much as you want, just don't make it look too suspicious by how much they're willing to pay the PCs for this. Maybe have whoever they're talking to, whichever fixer or corp, have to nervously call their supervisor and kind of wait in order to get clearance before they finally concede to pay whatever amount it is the player characters want. Once again, as long as it's not so high that it's suspicious. Because the truth is that Biotechnia has zero intention of the PCs making it to Nashville alive. The barrels that they're transporting are actually filled with a failed experiment from a previous batch, and they're using the PCs as decoys to pull Petrochem's attention away from the real shipment that's going on somewhere else. Biotechnia has hidden a transponder that's inside the truck somewhere, and they're going to be through the net, kind of leaking out the truck's location several times while it's on the drive. That way Petrochem can get it, Petrochem can hit the truck, and Petrochem can waste millions of dollars trying to research this enzyme, which they know does not work, and that's the whole plan. So they're willing to tell the PCs whatever amount it is that they want them to make for it, because they have no intention of actually paying the PCs, because the PCs aren't going to make it.
Wow, I feel a lot less special about my negotiating skills now that I know that. However, they are going to need to front us a couple bucks before we start, because I didn't get myself a drive check when I started this character, so I'm going to need to chip that skill if I'm going to do this adventure.
While a lot of game masters enjoy using miniatures for their games, and some don't, which is fine. Personally, I'm a miniatures game master myself, but also with the surge of new players that have been discovering CP 2020 with the amount of hype that the upcoming 2077 is, a lot of game masters, they haven't decided if they like it enough to make that investment, or maybe they just, aren't comfortable with miniatures and anything like that, which to each their own, no problem at all. However, one thing that I do strongly suggest with this game is that you go ahead and you pick up some toy cars for it. Most importantly, pick yourself up a toy tractor trailer.
Holy crap, is this about to be a grown-ass man playing with his toy car collection?
Damn right it is. I'm going to tell you from personal experience that toy cars can help a ton in this game. It helps everybody visualize where the cars are, and nothing really turns a group of adult players into a bunch of gleeful children that are making vroom vroom noises as they're playing with a toy car, just like it is when you lay out a bunch of Hot Wheels or whatever it is on the table and say, guys, these are going to be your miniatures. It is amazing and wonderful, and I can't recommend it enough. Now, while the adventure doesn't need any other books to run it, you can literally do it with just what's in this core Cyberpunk 2020 handbook. There are 2 other books that I'm going to recommend that you pick up if you would like to add a little bit more to it. The first of which being Neo-Tribes, and the second one being Home of the Brave. Both cover more of the United States than the CP 2020 book does, and both have some great information for world building. My recommendation, if you're going to pick up one of them, is Home of the Brave is going to be the most useful for this adventure. But Neo-Tribes also has a map of the United States that any nomad characters should be able to easily get, and that can help them visualize what the country looks like, and it kind of give them a good idea of what to expect along the way. Now for my game, I made a handout for the player characters that was just something that detailed all the features and the information about the truck. I also gave them a second sheet which included some damage location rules and charts so they could track their truck's condition during the course of the game. I have links below if you'd like to use them. Feel free to download them and use them however you want. Now, the last time that I ran this, I also made a couple of changes to the scenario itself. I set the start point in Night City because that's where our campaign was taking place, and then I had it where they had to drive the truck all the way down to Galveston, Texas. And then with a little bit of Photoshop, I made this map to map out their journey as they were going. It included a few features for the CP 2020 universe, such as a separated Northern and Southern California, the Free State of Nevada, the Republic of Texas, and a few other locations such as Alpha and Red Mesa. These are all from the Home of the Brave sourcebook, which is why I am recommending it, as it gives a lot of great details like that. Once again, links below if you'd like to use this map, but feel free to make your own. Photoshop a better one. I've never said my Photoshop was all that good, so maybe you can make some alternate ones as well, or maybe halfway through the journey, all of a sudden a new route pops up because something is obstructing the road far ahead, like a chemical spill or something like that. So that way when the PCs get good and comfortable, the nav system of the truck is like, bloop, new route coursed, and all of a sudden the PCs are like, well, hell, there went that plan. But it does make a fun handout that you can give your player characters, and if you just want to grab and go, and you just want to be able to use some maps and not have to make any of your own, feel free to download the ones on the link. It's there if you want it, and have fun.
Now this is a good time to mention state customs. See, the United States has been broken up into a lot of different free states, and they're almost like different countries. So now you got border crossings when you're going from Northern California into Southern California, and then into the Free State of Nevada, and then in Texas. So this is going to be a border crossing where all these cars get stacked up on top of each other trying to get through. And this is a good time for them to deal with some corrupt official that's going to be requesting that they give him a bribe. Otherwise, he's not going to let their truck through in time and they're going to miss their job. but it's also a good time where they're waiting in this line to be looking around at all these other cars and wondering, is someone about to try to hit us now? And that gets them all up on their guard. Some cyberbike comes cruising by like real slow, and they're wondering, is that guy about to stick something up on the side of our truck? Are we about to get hit? Because a Cyberpunk game definitely needs a good shot of paranoia to make it that much sweeter.
When I've run this, I've had the attacks against the PCs come in 3 very different waves. The first wave is nomads, and they're going to surround the vehicle with their cars and then swarm it with cyberbikes. This should play out a lot like a Mad Max movie, as these road warriors are trying to blow out the tires with their bolt throwers and crossbows, or they're leaping onto the back of the truck like spiders because they're going to try to hijack this truck and keep it for themselves. Because they're nomads, and this truck is valuable, and they could probably carry a ton of people and supplies in it. So for them, the truck itself is as big an asset as whatever's inside that they're going to get paid to hijack. Now, if one or more of the PCs is a nomad, and they want maybe use their special ability to be able to call their tribe for help, then that is great if they can use their nomad family. Just have the attacking tribe be a different tribe than whatever the nomad PC is. But if you do have that player character has called some nomads, maybe for some backup support, then you get to have a full-blown nomad war going on around this truck as it's, barreling through this crowd, like this big mob of different vehicles that are kind of piecemeal together. And the player characters are kind of white-knuckling it, hitting the nitro boosters and slamming through it. That can make for a very fun adventure, and it has made for a very fun adventure for me. Now, the second wave that we did is a group of edge runners. These are going to be cyberpunks just like the PCs, and they should have a very different strategy than the first team. One that I used is that they had a pair of very armored trucks that they pulled up in front of the truck to block the road and then slow everything down as they swarmed it with their own support vehicles from the side.
One thing to remember is that these attackers are not going to be trying to destroy the cargo. In fact, they're going to be doing everything they can to make sure that cargo gets through all these conflicts A-OK. That is good news for the cargo, but that is bad news for the driver of that truck and all those guys in the support vehicles, because they're the ones that beatdown is coming for.
The third wave I saved until the player characters reach Texas. Being a Texas-based company, Petrochem gets a lot of leeway in what it is they can be able to do here, so I had them send helicopters and aerodynes. Once again, this changed the combat and how it went, because now they weren't fighting ground vehicles, now they're fighting things that are in the air, and it keeps everything fresh, and let's admit, helicopters make car chases cool. Hopefully the player characters are going to survive all of these attacks. Now, the first time that I ran this adventure, the player characters had the truck get totaled on them, so one of the player characters ended up calling all of his nomad family in order to get some other vehicles, and they transported all the barrels within a couple different pickup trucks. And this cost the player character a ton, because anytime they use their nomad family, it's still going to cost them something, which the nomads are like, yeah, sure, we'll gladly do it, but we're going to get a cut of whatever award you're getting for this job, and the player character's like, okay, fine.
Which conveniently enough meant losing that truck, meant losing that transponder that was attached to it, which means Biotechnia wasn't leaking our information no more.
Obviously, Biotechnia is going to be a little surprised when the player characters actually pull this job up and come pulling into their destination with this big rig full of this enzyme. But they are going to begrudgingly pay the characters because a deal's a deal. But feel free to have whatever corporate stooge they're talking to, maybe deduct some of that payment depending on, damage to the truck, or if any of the barrels are missing, or maybe if they're a little bit late for it. Now, it was at this time that I always hit the player characters with a final assault, because this time they're outside of the truck, and this makes it very different than the other attacks. The first time I did it, it was from a pair of snipers. So the player characters, they've finished the job, they've gotten paid, they're making small talk with whichever corporate guy it is that was paying them for the job, and they're about to excuse themselves, and all of a sudden the corp guy's head exploded, the player characters screamed sniper and hit the deck. So then we had two snipers that were kind of moving up, leapfrogging their way up, and it led to a really intense fight and a whole lot of fun. Now, the second time that I did that, I instead chose to have a pair of really cybered and armored up solos, basically, kick down the door of whichever warehouse that this truck was now in, and their job was to just basically lay down a bunch of automatic fire, get in that truck, steal the truck, smash it through the metal doors and make off with it. And this meant that the player characters now were outside the truck, and trying to shoot someone that was inside the truck where they had been before led to a nice little bit of role reversal. And it was an exciting combat, and if these solos can make it out, this now means that the player characters are going to have to chase down the truck, which is a great role reversal overall.
Whoa, 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 buddy. Our job was to deliver a truck, which we did. Now, if you want to pay us to go and get your truck back, which you already lost, then I am open for negotiation.
Now, maybe Biotechny is not going to pay for them to chase down that truck. After all, they want Petrochem to get this enzyme. They actually want them to steal it. But whatever corporate guy that they're talking to at the time might be just a little bit too pissed off that, they were attacked and maybe his coworkers are killed and maybe he was injured, that he's not going to think about that as he looks at the PCs and, offers them, €1,000 or something like that to go and get that damn truck back and to kill those bastards. Now, overall, I really, really dig this adventure. It does require quite a bit of prep for the Game Master to fill in some of the details of the framework, so this is not a grab-and-go adventure by any means. But the game being one long car chase is a whole lot of fun, so I highly recommend that you give Open Highway a try.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you want to see some of our other videos or our other reviews, just hit that subscribe button. Until next time, players, you have a great day.